If I Should Die by Donevy Westphal, available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other retailers.
Well, you were right, Kimmel. Julius glanced at his watch. How's that? The other agent asked. We've followed Delia to three of the most expensive stores in this city, and all within the space of 3 hours. Clark is going to have 1 grand bill from that spending spree. Serve him right, Kimmel said as they followed Delia back to the office. Why's that? Leaving that poor girl to face the music and all that? He hasn't gotten where he is because of his compassion. He takes his orders directly from Meister, Julius had observed his partner for the few hours they had been following Delia Lilly. Julius had a feeling that Agent Kimmel might have feelings for Adam Clark's secretary. Park as close to where we were this morning as you can. I'm going to go back for my appointment with Clark. We're sure he won't be there, and after her actions, I think I have a date for this evening. Yeah, looks like to be a long night, Kimmel said. That it does, Julius said as Kimmel parked. Promptly at 3 o'clock, Julius, still in disguise as McLaughlin, did a rewind of the morning's actions. The street door opened, boots on the stairs, boots in the hall, and the door opened, and Mr. McLaughlin appeared in the office. She looked up from her busy work. I'm sorry, Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. Clark had an emergency. Her eyes were large and sympathetic. Mr. Clark has an account at a local Italian restaurant. Since you're the last appointment for this afternoon, we could catch some supper, and I could show you the sights if you are free. She smiled demurely as she glanced at his left hand. Julius hadn't expected Adam Clark to be here. Mr. Clark was someone else's problem now. Clark's secretary, and Clark's secretary's invitation fit into his plans like a missing piece of the puzzle. I'm flattered you would drop your plans for me, Miss Roosh, but I wouldn't want to interrupt any of your previous engagements. Please call me Delia. No, no inconvenience. I didn't have any plans, just microwave pizza for one. I'd love to have an excuse for an evening out. I'll just make a few phone calls first. She really has honed her skills. When you're ready, then. He waited, leaning on the door jamb while she put away her books, made her phone calls, and picked up her purse. Oh, just a moment. She slipped out of her office pumps and into her heels. The taxi should be ready when we get down to the street, she murmured as he took her elbow. At the restaurant, Julius sipped his water and glanced at Delia. This case couldn't be more twisted. Where had the years gone? Years ago he had thought of himself as a kid brother to her. How long will you be in Chicago? Delia slipped her wine. Not long. I'm called to quite a few different places. He leaned back as the waiter placed the shrimp cocktail in front of him. One time I had a buddy that lived in Taiwan. He says, Mitch, let's go shrimping. I told him, Mike, you're off the beam. I've only got a few hours. Julius began a litany of stories that dated back to his military service years. He had to change the names, of course, and never gave dates or real times, only long ago stories meant to entertain. The stories lasted from the shrimp cocktail all the way through the steak. Mr. McLaughlin, I've never heard so many hilarious stories in my entire life. Delia dabbed her eyes with her napkin. I haven't laughed so much or so hard, ever. Call me Mitch. How providential that you were able to come tonight. I'm sure Mr. Clark wouldn't be as congenial. The burden she carries she has chosen. There are no guarantees. Even if given a new chance, she'll use it well. But I'll try, for old time's sake. He gave an inward sigh. Thank you, Julia said as the waiter placed the dish of spumoni ice cream in front and center before him. He picked up the spoon and asked, Are you married? He indicated the ring on her left hand. I'm a widow, she frowned, avoiding his eyes. Picking up her spoon, she attacked her dessert. I'm sorry. Just recently? Not recently, but she frowned. You haven't had any wine. No, I stick to water. I'm allergic to alcohol, and she has consumed enough for both of us. Smiling in a cozy manner, she reached over and covered his hand with her soft fingers. I do find you charming. I haven't enjoyed an evening so much in a very long time. I'm glad you have enjoyed yourself. His napkin slid to the floor as he removed his hand from hers to retrieve it. Are you finished? Yes, I do believe I am. She blotted her lips lightly with her napkin. She swayed when she stood. I'm not sure that I can make it to my apartment. No worry, he grasped her elbow to help steady her. I'll take care of it. They walked out through the dimly lit restaurant, and he helped her into the cab. Delia had looked smug as the taxi pulled into traffic, but now she appeared to shrink into herself. The taxi nosed to the curb a short time later. Julia stepped out, then helped Delia out. This isn't even close to where I live. She looked around in bewilderment. I thought maybe we would see some of the sights you talked about. He ushered her into the little coffee house. The beguiled is beguiling. She allowed him to guide her to a small table. Julius ordered a latte. You must have an interesting job, Delia. How long have you worked at Clark and Holiday? It's a job, she said without emotion. I've been there 2.5 years. I'm looking for something different. Adam keeps telling me how unhappy he is at home. He's going to leave his wife, then we can get married. One thing or another always gets in the way. She leaned her cheek on the palm of her soft, manicured hand and sighed. What to do? I have some suggestions, but first, here's a question. Removing an old picture from his pocket, he laid it on the table in front of her. She studied the picture of a thin young girl standing beside a tall, young blond man. Julius watched her eyes narrow somewhat. She handed the picture back. She gazed into her cup for what felt like an eternity. Cute couple. Lily. Discomfort floated across her face like whipped cream across hot chocolate. Who are you and what do you want? She sat back in her chair, her eyes narrowed at the sound of a name she hadn't used in 10 years. Her eyes searched his face. There is something familiar about your face. Should I know you? I mean you no harm. I'm a friend. He could see an uneasy feeling, a fear in the depth of her eyes. A cynical haze came over her. It made her lovely features cold and bitter. I don't have any friends. Adam Clark thinks I'm stupid enough to believe his lies. However, I get paid well and I do meet some interesting people. So, until something better comes along, she shrugged and swirled the last of her coffee around in the bottom of her cup. Taking some bills out of his pocket, Julius threw them on the table. The time has come. Let's go. He firmly grasped her elbow and escorted her outside. Taxi, he called. I want to know who you are and where we are going. She pulled back from him. We are going somewhere to talk privately. The taxi stopped at the curb. What if I don't want to go? But you do. Julius's words were amiable, and he held the door open for her. She shrugged a shoulder. Maybe you're right. She slid into the cab. Julius slid in and watched his companion's pale, drawn face. How did you come by the name Delia Rouge, Lily? Julius asked. She stared at him, her eyes large. He wasn't sure she was going to answer. Mom, she always liked her great aunt's name, she mumbled in a resigned, hollow voice. It changed everything. What's that? He asked. James's death changed everything. My lawyer insisted I change my name, leave town. My whole life changed. I'd never been away from my hometown before. Mom had always been a manipulating person. She changed. We both lived with fear. Fear is a hard thing to live with, Julius said quietly. Fear and guilt. No matter where I go, the constant specter of the guilt is right here. She patted the seat beside her. I killed James, just as sure as if. I honestly didn't see it coming. Bill Amory. She shuddered and stopped speaking. As the vehicle edged in toward the curb, she stared up at the beautiful hotel with beautiful lights, its promise of comfort, maybe even peace at the end of the journey.